Good morning, fellow Peets of the press and those back at home. Today I'm grateful to be standing here before you today as the mayor of Peetsburg. First off, I'd like to thank you for your presence here today for this most important announcement. I'd also like to thank the members of the council for being here with me, Councilman Pete. I would also like to thank the sheriff for taking his time out of his busy day in honoring us with his presence. But today is an important day. An important day of remembrance, as it marks the 1-year anniversary of the death of Fireman Pete. We look back with sorrow, with the loss of this brave Pete, who was able to withstand the flames of hell themselves for his fellow Petes. But sadly, he could not withstand the flames of the now banned substance, TBSC. Since then, there have been many stories like this. Good Petes taken from us. Their laughter was turned into our tears because of this terrible disease upon our community. All areas of our life has been affected. A couple weeks ago, we even lost Deputy Sheriff Pete to this terrible substance, killed by an individual connected to the TBSC trade. His life taken from us as well. A hurt I'm sure the sheriff feels quite close to home. But this terrible, terrible substance that is plaguing our streets, this day of reckoning is near. And that is why, as of today, I am announcing the start of a new task force whose sole purpose will be to totally eradicating the illegal production, sale, and use of TBSC. And on this task force, we will have Councilman Pete, Chief Inspector Pete, City Prosecutor Pete, and the Fire Chief Pete, who sadly could not be here today. They will have broad, sweeping enforcement power in all matters related to the illegal manufacturing, distribution, and use of TBSC. They will have full authority to investigate and to plan operations to crack down in high-use areas. They will be able to obtain warrants, which will be enforced with the help of the Sheriff's Department. If you are in any way involved in TBSC, I suggest you come forward now, because it will be a lot easier if you come forward. Because if we have to fine you, and we will fine you, you will have hell to pay. The era of TBSC is soon to come to an end. I am now open to questions from members of the media. You.
Thank you, Mayor. What I wanted to ask you is, does the task force have a name?
Well, as far as the name, there is no official name of the task force yet, but if you would like, you could refer to it as Task Force The Good Sauce. Include that in one of your headlines. I'm sure it'll get plenty of clicks. Next question.
I actually have two questions. Why is the fire chief not here today? And what role would the fire chief play in substance?
Well, first of all, the fire chief is a very busy man. He's putting out fires on nearly a daily basis. We Pete's do love our fires after all and have a tendency to set things on fire. If it wasn't for him, the entire city probably would have burned down a long time ago. um, as far as why he's on this task force, I just think that Fire Chief Pete has experience, he has connections with the community, and I firmly believe that he has expertise that will come useful in counsel that we will find necessary. And let's be honest, Fire Chief Pete loves this city, and I'm certain that he'll do everything he can to protect it from this terrible, terrible disease that are currently plaguing the streets. Next question.
What would you say to the people who feel that this has the potential to violate their civil liberties?
Civil liberties. Of course, they will always be protected. This task force is all about that. But you know, that question I find a bit troubling. As in, your first thing to ask for when people are literally dying in the streets is, what about their civil liberties? Well, let me ask you, what about their civil liberties? What about Fireman Pete? What about Deputy Sheriff Pete? What about Pete from 4th Avenue? What about Pete from Central Town? What about them? They themselves have perished from this terrible disease. What about their civil liberties that was stolen from them by TBSC? You want to ask me about whether or not we will honor civil liberties of all Pete's, but you won't. But listen, people are dying, and I'm trying to protect this city, and let me tell you, will protect this city. I will protect this city, and sometimes this task force will protect this city, and sometimes, in order to preserve people's livelihoods, a heavy hand is needed. And we will be preserving this city. We will be protecting it, because that is our job. That is a ridiculous question. Is that a good enough response for your kind of news, for your news, whatever it is? Next question. Maybe a more reasonable question this time. You.
I have a question related to 3 murders that happened this week that appear to be connected. The most recent one being a painter. Do you believe that we might have a serial killer on the loose?
There's been about 13 murders this week alone in Peetsburg, and maybe about 30 over the past couple weeks. What makes you think there's a connection between these particular crimes? I'm not really getting...
The high level of efficiency in these particular cases. Fast-paced break-in, kill,
You know what?
and departure.
You know what? A better man to answer that question than me would be the sheriff. And luckily, he's standing right here. Come on up, Sheriff. Answer this question for this nice reporter. Come on. See what you get. Thank you, Mayor, for this opportunity. First off, there's more than less 23 murders this week, and more like 40 over the last 2. As for the Pacific case, I make it both personal and professional policy not to comment on ongoing investigations. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sheriff. There he is with his, the accurate numbers and professionalism, as always. Anyways, any more questions? You.
Why isn't the sheriff on this task force?
Well, I'm certain the sheriff would love to be on this task force, but he's probably very busy. After all, he has 23 murders on his desk this week alone. So I'm fairly confident that he doesn't have the time. But of course, his advice and counsel will always be seen as valuable to this task force. Next question. Yes, you.
Yes.
Yes.
Me? Pete?
Come on.
Oh, okay.
Speak
I'm
up.
Pete with Conspirafact. Why won't you release
Here
the
we go.
evidence of double X beans?
You know, there comes to a point in every press conference where every question that needs to be asked has been asked. And then you have Conspirafact coming out with a whole new one. You guys crack me up, you really do. Such absurdity. I thank you all for your attendance. I don't have any more time for any questions, unfortunately, but I thank you for your attendance. I'm really honored and privileged to be here. But please remember, we're here to keep you safe and secure. That is a promise. You all have a pleasant afternoon.